Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you know, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I mean, I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
Why do you think so many smart, powerful people allowed him to get so close?
He was a good salesman. He was, you know, was a hale and hearty type of guy. He had some nice assets that he'd throw around, like islands. But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. You know, they do that for danger, too, because, you know, it endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
That's great to hear.
You know, it's the same thing with Epstein's list. It's like, what the hell are these Republicans doing? Oh,
I saw you
give out the list.
I saw you make news this morning about that. I got to get to that.
Yeah.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, you know, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if release the names, right? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So you got to talk about what I believe to be the biggest story on X, probably the biggest story on the internet right now. I'm not sure if this is a big story in real life, but there are a lot of people who are upset, particularly in the MAGA world, over the fact that it appears that the Trump DOJ and FBI are folding on releasing the Epstein client list. Okay, and this is a big deal because this was a part of what the Trump team campaigned on, okay, which is transparency around Epstein and that whole situation. And now they have egg on their face because it is clear and obvious that they can't deliver the goods that everybody thought they could deliver. Now, I want to talk about this because, once again, I am going to give you the most rational, logical, and level-headed take on this situation because a lot of people are thinking about this way too emotionally. And I'm going to take the emotions out of it and tell you guys what most likely is happening here. I'm not coming to any definitive conclusions about what happened. I'm just telling you what, logically speaking, is probably what's going on, okay, and why we're seeing the Trump administration fold on releasing the client list and releasing all of the files and the videos and the things that they claimed that they were going to release. So I want to talk about it, but before I get into it, I just want people to understand that the Trump administration and all the backlash they're getting right now is deserved. Every single bit of the backlash they are receiving is deserved. So I don't want anybody in the comment section talking about, oh, you're swinging from Trump's ball sack. Why are you not criticizing him? No, actually, this is a video of me criticizing the Trump administration because they really do deserve all of the backlash that they're getting. They dropped the ball. This is a fumble. This is humiliating. This is embarrassing. Okay? So I'm not holding back, right? I'm telling you that this is not good, but it's not for the reasons that most people are currently lashing out against the Trump administration. And that's why I'm going to give you the most level-headed and logical take on this because I think people are really upset for the wrong reason. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's read a little bit about what was announced in regards to the Trump administration in these files. And then we're going to get into some of the reactions because people are really upset about this. So let's read here. President Trump's Justice Department and FBI have concluded they have no evidence that convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or was murdered, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Now, this is what Axios is stating. However, Axios is not being honest about what actually is being said. Because what is being said is investigators found, quote, no incriminating client list of Epstein and, quote, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, the memo adds. Yeah, so we got to pay attention to the language, right? And pay attention to the language throughout this video because the language is important to understanding exactly what's going on here. No incriminating client list is the key. That doesn't mean there is no client list. What they're saying essentially is that there's no incriminating client list. Those are two different things. So before I get into this, I want to go ahead and play some clips of Pam Bondi making promises and saying things about how they're going to release more information. And then I'm going to tell you guys the likely explanations for what is going on here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
We all did. And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, you know, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Cash is going to, Director Patel, is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay. You said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk. When can we see them, and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, you know, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah, what you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information, but it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay, well,
along with his co-defendant.
Absolutely, and he had help. That's for sure.
He sure did.
Yeah, so what you have here is Pam Bondi basically saying that she's going to release all the information and that they're gathering all of the evidence. And this has been going on for months now. And as she was saying these things, you had Kash Patel, who is the director of the FBI, and Dan Bongino, who is the deputy director. They have been walking back from some of the things that they were saying, okay, before they got into office about how sure they were that this evidence of the Epstein client list exists and that is, you know, being suppressed by powerful, shadowy figures.
The narrative has always been that there's video. But what about the video from the island?
Again, we're going to give you everything we can, and people have to remember, we're not going to re-victimize women. We're not going to put that shit back out there. It's not happening, because then he wins. Not doing it. You want to hate me for it? Fine. Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
Right. If you have it.
Right.
But you can't say that you have it.
No, we're giving you everything we have.
And is there video from the island?
Not of what you want.
So this narrative might not be accurate, that there's video of these guys doing this.
Exactly.
Have you guys reviewed everything that you have?
Almost. Yes, we have, and now we're figuring out how to put it out.
But is there footage?
If there was footage of anyone doing anything else, we would have opened it.
Yeah, so that is Cash Patel, the director of the FBI, who, basically said, listen, the only reason that this stuff is not being released before he got into office is that, the politicians are suppressing it, right? They are covering for the kid diddlers, okay? And now all of a sudden that he's in office, right? He has the power to, give us transparency. Now he's saying, there's really nothing to release, right? That what people are looking for is not there. Also on top of that, Dan Bongino, who's also one of these people, just like Cash Patel, that was very, hell-bent on figuring out the truth about Epstein and was sure that all of this evidence exists. He's now coming out and saying Epstein, he committed suicide. He wasn't murdered, that he, in fact, did kill himself. Obviously, people are upset with this, and they don't believe Dan Bongino and Cash Patel and the fact that they're now claiming that the things that people believe are not necessarily true, and that there's not the evidence that people thought was there. Okay, and now that the Axios story has come out, basically saying that there's a memo from the DOJ saying that, hey, we don't really have the evidence, right? All of these things they're not there, right? They don't really exist. The Trump administration is facing a whole lot of backlash, right? And again, rightfully so. They're facing some backlash because, again, they made a lot of big promises, right? And this is what Caroline Leavitt had to say in response to some of the questions about this alleged memo. Take a look.
Caroline, the DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that, Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Now on to the explanation of why is it that the Trump administration appears to be folding on a campaign promise and also a promise that they made shortly after he got into office. But after a couple of weeks, things changed, right? Things changed very, very, very quickly in regards to what they could deliver on. Okay, now I'm going to explain to you guys what I think likely is the explanation here. But I just want to be clear. I'm not ruling out any possibilities, right? So, for example, I'm not saying that there isn't a possibility that there is some giant kid diddler ring of elites, okay, who are in charge and powerful, and that, you know, Jeffrey Epstein, being an alleged Mossad agent working on behalf of the Israeli government, was used as an asset, was compromised in order to keep control over powerful men, again, on behalf of Mossad, right? Essentially, Israel forcing the Trump administration to cover up the client list because of the fact that, you know, they don't want this giant ring of kid diddlers exposed to the world, right? I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm not saying that's not what's going on. Hey, that's what a lot of people believe. And no matter what explanation comes out from the administration, people are going to believe that no matter what, which again is why they're getting the backlash.
We are built on pedophilia and blackmailing the most powerful
What
people.
do you mean we are built? Define that. Do you mean our entire country, our entire government, our entire FBI, CIA?
I'm saying this. Whoever,
or this is one little operation that
Adam,
they don't want to expose.
Whoever he was working for, Epstein, Mossad, CIA, everything. Apparently, the most powerful people on the world were flying to an island and having sex with underage kids because she said it. There's tens of thousands of hours of them doing it. If we're built on that and the most powerful people that are running the show are in charge, the guys telling Cash Patel, the thing that you just read, shut up. Shut up about it. Hold on, you know who I am. He knows who I am. I want accountability for everybody. If it's Trump, if it's Bill Gates, if it's Bill Clinton, I don't give a shit if it's the president of anything. Expose them, because Adam, the truth has to come out.
Okay, so I only have one question for you,
yes,
my dear friend. I agree with you, but at what price?
Take a deep breath. Okay.
But hold on, hear me out. At what price?
At any price, Adam.
So you're saying to expose whatever happened on Epstein Island, you're willing to do whatever this looks like.
Yes.
Tear down the government, expose all the secrets, put America basically in harm's way just to find out what's Epstein.
What do you mean, Adam?
Because these are the most powerful people in the world.
Yeah.
They're apparently on this island.
Adam, so let the truth be told or the heavens fall. I don't care.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
Adam. And that's who Vincent O'Shana is. I am 100% accountability, and I don't give a if Adam, if that's what we were built
but at
on.
what price?
I don't give a shit.
Tearing
There's
down
no
America?
price. Guess what the price is, Adam? God.
So
God's
you want
the price.
There's also the explanation that the list is not being released because Trump is on the list, right? This is what a lot of left-wingers are running with now because of how embarrassing this is. They're now saying, well, it's obvious that the list is not being released because Trump is on it. Even though if Trump was actually on the list, I don't think that Democrats would have withheld the list, right? If Trump was actually on it. If he was on it, let's put it this way. If he was on it in an incriminating way, right? In a way that's actually incriminating, I don't think the Democrats would have kept that a secret, especially considering how they essentially went out of their way to try to lock up President Trump. There were multiple assassination attempts against him. I just don't believe that if Trump was actually on the list, that would not have been exposed. Now, there is the explanation that, well, Democrats are also incriminated as well, too. Prominent Democrat and liberal figures, Hollywood figures, they're also involved. So, therefore, that's why they couldn't expose Trump. But also, at the same time, I really don't believe that Trump would have knowingly campaigned on having this information released if he actually was guilty of a crime, right? That to me makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever, right? Especially something of this magnitude. It makes zero sense for him to knowingly be like, yeah, we're going to release this information. And he's on the list, right? That to me is just really dumb, okay? And that's why I think that the people saying that this is not being released because Trump is on the list, again, that's just a very low IQ wink and a nod, red meat to left-wing extremist base, right? That is what that really is, okay? I think that is the least likely explanation. But hey, I'm not completely ruling it out, okay? Because anything is possible with, these people, our world, politics. Now, in regards to what I think most likely is what's going on here, and again, I'm not saying that this is what's happening for sure. I'm just telling you that based off the logic that I'm following and what I'm seeing, the actions of these individuals, I personally believe that Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino legitimately and sincerely believed that there was the evidence that everybody's seeking going into their offices, right? Going into their jobs, they had the full intent of providing 100% transparency. And I think what they found out when they got into their offices is that they don't have the goods, that the goods are not there, and that they campaigned on delivering these goods. And when they found out that they couldn't deliver the goods, they panicked and then they enter into damage control. Now, why aren't the goods there? Well, maybe Biden, before President Trump got in office, maybe his DOJ, his FBI got rid of it. We don't know, right? It's impossible to know. But what it appears to me is that when they found out that they couldn't deliver on the goods, okay, because either Biden deleted it or maybe the evidence just doesn't exist, right? Maybe there's not enough incriminating evidence, and that's why I try to tell people, pay attention to the language that is actually used. They're not saying there's no client list. There's a client list, but there's not enough incriminating evidence to actually arrest anybody or to charge anybody. And when they review all the evidence that they had, they realize that we don't have enough evidence to actually go after anybody. Again, I think that's when they went into damage control mode, and they had no clue whatsoever how to handle it, because they knew that if they actually came out and said, well, we don't have anything incriminating enough to go after anybody, that there's just a certain crowd of people that are never going to accept that, because people are demanding arrest. People are demanding the people who allegedly participated, okay, with Jeffrey Epstein, who were Jeffrey Epstein's clients, be held accountable, and rightfully so. So I think they knew that it was a no-win situation and that they essentially promised something that they couldn't deliver. And that is why you saw all of these attempts in order to kick the can down the road. Like, for example, when they had all of those influencers at the White House, right, with those files, with those documents or whatever, that was just them trying to figure out what to do, right? That was clearly them trying to play damage control because they didn't have the goods. So they released stuff that was already available to the public. And Pam Bondi made it even worse because she kept coming out and saying things about the evidence, the videos that they had, when she should have known that people wouldn't actually listen to what she was saying. Like, for example, a lot of people keep criticizing her, saying that, well, she said that there are, thousands of hours of videos and, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually listen to what she said, she never said that there were thousands of hours of videos of other people. She said of Epstein.
Tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently...
So what people heard was that, Pam Bondi said that there were thousands of videos. But again, what people did hear was that she said thousands of videos of Epstein. Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted based off helping Jeffrey Epstein, facilitating his activities, not based off the clients that they allegedly trafficked, underage girls to, right? She wasn't convicted based off that. She was convicted based off helping Epstein, which is why a client list is not necessary for Ghislaine Maxwell to be convicted, right? A lot of people are asking questions, well, if there's no incriminating client list, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? Well, it's because, again, a lot of people are misunderstanding exactly why she was convicted. It doesn't have anything to do with the client list, right? It has everything to do with helping Jeffrey Epstein abuse underage girls. That's why she was convicted, right? And helping traffic and to facilitate in that, okay? Not having to do with other people. Now, that doesn't mean that other people weren't likely involved. They probably were likely involved, right? But again, the problem here is that the Trump administration is now stuck in a situation where they are pressured to release a list that they're claiming is not incriminating, but they can't release it for that very reason, right? That's why they can't release it. And the reason why they can't release it is because they don't have enough evidence and proof to arrest or charge anybody on the list, and releasing that list without having evidence or proof that they actually participated in any wrongdoing would be ethically irresponsible because they know that the public would associate those individuals with wrongdoing, even though they could very well be innocent, right? So you're talking about reputational damage for people who may have been associated with Epstein, may have hung around Epstein, but there's not actual real evidence, or at least not enough evidence to convict in the court of law, or not enough evidence to charge somebody or to prosecute somebody for any wrongdoing. That's why they're not going to release the list. That's why you're probably never going to get the list, because the list in and of itself is not enough evidence. And whatever other evidence they have is not enough to actually charge and to convict, right? That, in my opinion, is probably the most likely explanation for why they're not releasing the list. They promised something that they probably legitimately sincerely thought they could deliver on. And then once they got in office, they realized, oh, wait, we can't actually deliver on this. We have to go into damage control, ultimately just to come out and admit that, yeah, we don't have the goods, right? We really can't charge or arrest anybody because we don't have enough evidence to charge or arrest anybody. And I personally don't think that the list will ever be released, because ultimately it would be irresponsible to release a list like that, knowing that people are going to suffer reputational damage, even though they haven't really been convicted, or there's no strong evidence that they did anything. Now, that's not to say that the people on the list are completely 100% innocent, but that is different than saying that you can go to court and prove that. And if you can't go to court and prove it, if you don't even have enough to charge them for it, then again, releasing it would just would be a very irresponsible thing to do. And again, I just think that is the most likely explanation for why they're not releasing it. And I think that the Trump officials, the Trump administration, they deserve backlash because they never should have campaigned on this in the first place. They never should have made this promise before getting into office, right? They should not have campaigned on this. It was completely and 100% unnecessary. It was not important for Trump to win. It was not an integral part of Trump winning. Trump would have won had they not said anything about this, right? Had they not made any promises about this, he still would have won. So it was completely and totally unnecessary. And now it's backfiring because they can't deliver the goods. And that's why I say they deserve all the backlash, but not for the reason that people think. People are giving them backlash because they think that this is, some giant cover up, at the behest of Israel and, other powerful people. And I'm not saying it's not possible, right? I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying that that's not the most likely explanation, in my opinion. That the most likely explanation is much more boring. And I know that's why people are not going to accept it. I know that's why there are going to be people in the comment section that are going to say, oh, no, that's not right. It has to be because of this and that. And, it's a giant cover up. And I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that ultimately, in the day, I think there are more likely explanations. And the Trump administration knew once they couldn't deliver the goods that people would never accept the boring explanation, which is that there's no there, right? Or at least not enough to have mass arrests, which is what people wanted. They knew that people would never accept it, which is why they panicked. This is why you saw all of the stunts. This is why you saw them continue to kick the can down the road. All of the promises, all of the carefully worded claims about the video and the evidence that they should have known people would not actually listen to what they were saying. This is why you saw that stuff. And ultimately, it backfired. Okay? I personally believe that they do deserve all the backlash, right? I understand why people are upset. They have the right to be upset. And them being upset is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why they're panicking, because people aren't accepting their explanation. And they knew that people would never accept this explanation, which is why they should have never made the promise in the first place. So, yeah, like I said, because of that reason, they deserve the backlash. It's just one of those things where they're going to have to deal with the consequences. And hopefully this is a lesson in the future that maybe it's not worth engaging in this type of stuff if you're not sure that you can actually deliver, right? Maybe you should not make these type of promises, again, unless you know for sure that you can deliver. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.